All right, let's dive in. Today, we're exploring a case that's both fascinating and heartbreaking: the disappearance of Christie Wilson.
Yeah, a 27-year-old who vanished from a California casino back in 2005.
What makes this case so compelling is that it hinges on this thing called circumstantial evidence.
Hmm.
Not a clear-cut confession or DNA evidence.
It's more like a puzzle, right? Where investigators had to piece together these seemingly unrelated details.
Exactly. And what's really intriguing is that they were able to get a conviction despite the lack of that smoking gun evidence.
It's really a testament to how thorough and creative investigators can be when building a case.
So let's rewind back to the night Christie disappeared. October 5th, 2005, at the Thunder Valley Casino.
Picture this: a bustling casino floor, the sounds of slot machines, and Christie is there with her friend, Tiffany D.
Just a normal night out, right?
Seems like it. But then they meet this guy, Mario Garcia.
And hours later, just after 1 a.m., security cameras capture Christie leaving the casino with him.
But here's where it gets interesting. Her body language in that footage. It's like she's trying to pull away from him.
Almost like she's uncomfortable or apprehensive.
Exactly. And that's the last known image of Christie.
Chilling, right. That security footage becomes a key piece of the puzzle. But at this point, Mario Garcia is just the last person seen with her.
Right. So initially, he's just a potential witness.
What shifts him from witness to suspect?
Well, during the initial investigation, some inconsistencies pop up in his story. He claims they left together, but then parted ways in the parking lot.
Making it sound like a casual encounter.
Exactly. But that security footage contradicts his story. It clearly shows him driving off alone, no Christie.
Red flag number one.
And it gets even creepier. When Tiffany D sees that footage, she says she had this bad feeling about the way Christie was interacting with Garcia.
Almost like she sensed something was off.
Yeah, that gut feeling adds another layer to this whole mystery.
But even with the inconsistencies and that unsettling feeling, suspicion alone isn't enough to convict someone, especially with no physical evidence. So how did the investigation move forward?
This is where Christie's mother, Debbie Wilson, enters the picture. She becomes a driving force in the investigation.
A true testament to a mother's love.
Absolutely. She was determined to find answers, famously saying, "I'm her mother forever and I'm not going to give up."
And she didn't. Debbie launched her own investigation, urging law enforcement to dig deeper into Garcia's past.
They start peeling back those layers, and what they find is pretty disturbing.
What did they uncover? What was it about his past that raised those red flags?
Well, one of his former partners, Wendy Ward, bravely comes forward to share her experience with him.
And what did she reveal?
A history of domestic abuse. She described threats, physical violence.
Disturbing parallels to that unease we saw in the casino footage.
Exactly. So suddenly, Garcia's past starts painting a much darker picture.
Right, but how did the investigators and the prosecution connect all these dots? The inconsistent story, the unsettling footage, and his history of violence into a solid case, especially without any direct link to Christie's disappearance.
That's the challenge, and that's what makes this case so fascinating. It truly shows how circumstantial evidence can be used to create a compelling narrative.
But I imagine it wasn't a simple path to a conviction.
Oh, not at all. There were legal hurdles, heated courtroom debates. But we'll get into all that next time.
Right, because this case is far from over. We still have so much to unpack about how this case went to trial and the long road to justice for Christie and her family. It really is amazing how they used circumstantial evidence in this case.
Yeah, it's not like finding a weapon with fingerprints, right?
Not a straightforward gotcha moment.
Exactly. It's more about weaving together a story.
The story that's convincing enough for a jury.
Right. So in this case, the prosecution had to show how all these pieces fit.
The inconsistencies in Garcia's story, that unsettling security footage.
His past behavior. They had to create a narrative that linked it all together.
So they were basically arguing that all this evidence pointed to one conclusion.
That Mario Garcia was responsible for Christie's disappearance.
That's a pretty bold approach, especially without that smoking gun evidence.
Oh, and the defense definitely fought back.
I bet they did. What was their main argument?
Their strategy was to poke holes in that circumstantial evidence.
Trying to raise those doubts.
Exactly. They emphasized that lack of a direct link to Christie.
Like no DNA, no witnesses to an actual crime.
Right. And they argued that having a troubled past doesn't automatically make you a murderer.
So it became a battle of interpretations, really.
Absolutely. Two different ways of looking at the same evidence.
And ultimately, the jury had to decide which story they believed.
And it was a tough decision, I'm sure. How do you weigh all those factors without that definitive proof?
That's what makes this case so fascinating. So what were some of the key points the prosecution used to sway the jury? What helped them tell that convincing story?
Well, they zeroed in on specific details, like the way Christie was pulling away from Garcia in that security footage.
Almost like she was trying to get away from him.
Exactly.
Mm.
And they kept bringing up how his story kept changing.
Right, first he was with her, then he wasn't.
It made him look unreliable. And then they drew those parallels between his past behavior and what happened to Christie,
So they were building this pattern, showing a history of violence.
and arguing that this wasn't just some random coincidence.
It all pointed to him. Wow, talk about building a case brick by brick.
And it worked. In 2006, the jury came back with a verdict.
Guilty.
Mario Garcia was convicted of Christie Wilson's murder.
It must have been such a mix of emotions for Christie's family.
Relief, sadness. Imagine getting that justice but still not knowing where your daughter is.
Like a victory with a huge piece still missing.
Exactly. It was a bittersweet win. And though there was a conviction, the case stayed open. Debbie Wilson, she never gave up hope of finding Christie.
Wow, that's incredible. So even with Garcia behind bars, the search continued.
Absolutely. She organized searches, kept Christie's story in the public eye, became a voice for other families of the missing.
That's true dedication, just refusing to let the case fade away.
She really embodied that saying, never give up hope. Did any new leads come up, though? Did all that searching uncover anything?
I'm hoping for some good news here, but I have a feeling.
Unfortunately, no. Despite all those efforts, Christie's remains have never been found.
That's heartbreaking. And I imagine it adds another layer of pain to this whole tragedy.
It's that lingering question mark, the not knowing.
That must be so difficult to deal with, even with a conviction. So beyond the mystery and the legal outcome, what kind of impact did Christie Wilson's case have? Did it change anything?
Definitely. This case really brought the issue of domestic violence to the forefront.
Making people more aware of the warning signs.
Exactly. It made people talk about safety, especially for women, urging them to trust their gut instincts.
Like what Tiffany D felt when she saw that security footage.
Right. It showed how crucial it is to pay attention to those feelings. This case also showed how important families are in pushing for justice.
Debbie Wilson's dedication is truly inspiring.
Absolutely. Her story showed how one person's voice can make a difference.
So while the mystery of Christie Wilson's disappearance is still unresolved,
Her case sparked conversations, raised awareness, and continues to remind us about the complexities of justice and the enduring strength of hope.
powerful takeaways for sure. But this deep dive isn't over yet. There's one more layer to explore.
Right, and it delves into the deeper questions this case brings up.
Questions that go beyond the facts and make us really think about the human cost of these tragedies.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it? Can you truly find peace without those answers?
It's a question a lot of families grapple with. I mean,
Yeah.
think about Debbie Wilson. She fought so hard, never gave up.
She's incredible.
She is.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder about the toll it takes.
The emotional weight of that constant search. Right. You see these stories of resilience, but could there be a point where that search maybe does more harm than good?
That's a tough one. Where's the line between seeking answers and maybe needing to let go for your own well-being?
It's a personal journey, really. No easy answers there. Some people find comfort in that active search.
Keeps the memory alive.
Exactly. But for others, it might reopen those wounds constantly.
Prevent them from finding any peace.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we can't judge those journeys. We can't truly know what it's like to be in their shoes.
Right. And it brings us back to this idea of justice. Legally, Garcia was convicted. But what about that other kind of justice? The one that comes from finding Christie?
I think for a lot of families, finding their loved one, it brings closure in a way the legal system can't.
It's that tangible proof.
Yeah, it's not just knowing in your heart. It's being able to lay them to rest properly, say those final goodbyes.
Those rituals are so important.
They are. And when those remains are missing, it complicates that healing process.
Because you're always left wondering, what happened? Where are they?
Exactly. And that's what makes these cases linger, They force us to confront those limitations.
The limitations of our justice system, of what we can truly know.
And yet, there's still that human element of hope, the need to keep searching for answers even when they seem impossible to find.
This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. Christie's case, with all its twists and turns, it really makes you think.
It does. And these deep dives, they're not just about the facts of the case.
It's about the people involved, the impact it has on everyone.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this. How do we define justice for ourselves? Is it punishment? Is it closure? Or is it something even deeper? Think about it, and until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep.